So a really long time ago in my video about latency, I said,
and I'm going to tell you right now, the number one reason why people are having latency when they're using this software is because they're using a Bluetooth speaker.
you don't want to be using AirPods or any kind of Bluetooth speaker. I am using iLoud micro monitors right here on my desk, but these have the option to be connected via TRS or auxiliary cable, as well as Bluetooth. When it comes to recording, when it comes to monitoring, pretty much don't want to be using Bluetooth. We are getting to a point now where probably in the next 5 years, Bluetooth will maybe even have no latency at all. But with the way things stand right now, you want to have a wired connection when it comes to monitoring your music, and that includes recording. And that also includes when you're on your MIDI keyboard and you're making beats or whatever. Another way to eliminate latency is to make sure that you close all your other applications. Like in my case, I'm running a 2017 MacBook Pro. It's only got 8 gigs of RAM and like an i5 processor or something. So it doesn't have that much power. It doesn't have that much RAM and processor speed. So I always make sure that I don't even really have a Chrome browser running. Make sure my browsers are closed down. I make sure that ScreenFlow editor, what I have running right now, is closed down because it's just too much for my computer to handle, and I'll definitely get some latency if there's too much going on. Another thing that you can try is you can go into GarageBand like this, go to your settings, go to advanced, and then change your audio recording bit depth to 16-bit. Now, the result of this is that there's going to be less information per sample. This could actually reduce the load on your CPU. And however, one effect that it will have is it's going to reduce the dynamic range, and it's probably going to make the recording quality a bit worse. But it's very possible this could help your latency issue. Another solid way to reduce latency in GarageBand is, like, let's say you have a bunch of audio tracks. What you want to do is you bring up Option T on your tracks and track lock, record enable. We're just going to put on record enable anyway. And you can actually lock your tracks, lock the tracks where you're not currently recording, and that's going to stop you. That's going to stop them from rendering, which means that there won't be any data processing going on in the background. So you'll have more room, or more RAM and more processor speed that can be devoted for actually recording what you're doing. Another way to minimize latency is to make sure that all of your monitoring buttons are turned off. Like, see, if you have, let's say you're recording a bunch of tracks, sometimes you'll end up leaving the monitoring on a bunch of them. But you don't want to do that. You want to just have one where you're currently recording, and just make sure all the other ones are turned off. Another way to minimize latency is actually to use direct monitoring. I don't know what kind of interface you have, but if you have a Scarlett 2i2, you can click your direct monitoring button right here, and that will actually bypass the monitoring of your computer, and you'll actually be able to monitor, as the name suggests, directly from the audio interface. So if your guitar is plugged in or your vocals are plugged in, instead of the signal going all the way through and through your computer and out through your speakers processed by the DAW, instead you can listen to it directly from the audio interface, and then before it goes into the computer for processing. By the way, I got a present for you. Go to producersociety.com/free mixing cheat sheet, and I'll give you my free mixing cheat sheet if you sign up to my list. And you can also be a part of the community that I'm building. But ultimately, the number one way that people are going to fix latency usually has something to do with the Bluetooth speakers. Most people, they just kind of forget. They either forget what they're using because they're so used to using AirPods and other Bluetooth accessories that they don't realize that that connection isn't quite fast enough. And there's going to be some serious delay between when you strike the note and when you can actually hear it through your speakers. It's worth mentioning that you can also download applications, for instance, like the Focusrite control. So if I go into my Focusrite control right here, you can mess around with your device in here, and so you can like figure out, maybe you can set your sampling rate here to something different, or maybe you can mess around in here to do something. Frankly, I don't know much about Focusrite control and I never use it, but it's very possible that something is that it's capable of making some changes in this interface that will help you out latency for you. Another way to minimize latency, I would say, is to just have a lot of room on your computer. So what I do is I actually have everything on my computer loaded onto my solid state drive. I showed you how to do that in another video with the name like how to load all your files onto an external solid state drive or something like that.
If you want to store all of your instruments and sounds in a different place, you're going to need what's called an external solid state drive.
But yeah, I've had all like 20 gigabytes of GarageBand and Logic, Apple loops, and all the instruments loaded onto an SSD for a long time now. And I find that helps a little bit. It doesn't help a lot in my experience, but it will kind of make room, at least for storage as well.